Welcome to the Melanie Rose Killick story, 3-part podcast.
That's how my life is unfolding. Expecting the best, seeing myself watching Seamus growing up, being involved with his life, continuing to write these letters.
So how many letters have we got on dearseamus.com?
I think there's nearly 50.
And what have you written about in some of those letters? Because I read your last one. There's Uluru. There's plenty there to read.
Yes, and I think what I'm doing, again, the theme is about love. It's about self-love and being the most authentic experience of yourself. So I spent a lot of my adult life living with fear, living with doubt, self-loathing, and they're the kinds of things that I don't want my child to learn so that he has to unlearn them. And I also don't want those things for the next generation of children. So if we're encouraging our children to love themselves, to experience themselves in a really authentic way, to know exactly who they are, then we're going to create this incredible world to live in. Like that's going to be our reality. And again, it comes down to this idea of imagining. You know, there's plenty of people that are walking around now imagining a better world because there's things in this physical reality that they don't like. And I'm sure you can think of 10 things off the top of your head that you don't like about the world or about society or about how people treat each other. So because you have experienced those things, you are wanting something different. You're wanting something better and you're imagining it. And so that is the world that our children are going to grow up in. So it makes sense to me that we get them when they're really young to start imagining this really beautiful world where people love themselves and people are kind to each other. And we start dropping a lot of these old, outdated belief systems that just don't work for us anymore because they're keeping us apart. They're keeping us stuck in this idea of being separate when we're not separate. We're all coming from the same place, like I said about the hand. You know, you've got your little individual fingers that all look different. They're all a different experience and a different length and they look different and they feel different and they do different things, but they're all part of the hand. So it's all coming from that same place. So, you know, how are you contributing to that? That's, you know, I mean, that's the basis of my letters. So that's what I kind of repeat, you know, over and over again in terms of themes, is about Seamus getting to know his true self. And then beyond that, it just comes wrapped in an experience that I've had or a memory or a book that I'm reading, whatever it is that's inspired me to write.
But it's great to write. It's great to journal. It's something that I've learnt in the last 6 months after having my last little boy, and the experience around him was to journal, was to get those thoughts out and onto paper, and for something for my children to look back on too. And like you said about the hand, I look at that analogy of my kids. My husband and I have 9 beautiful children, but yet they're all different. But they're all from the 2, I suppose, of Jason and I. But yet each single one of those children is completely different. And you've taught me, if nothing else too, is to write about life experiences to my kids, and also there are another two girls that do podcasts, and one of those other girls is a journaler and they write. And through your letters, I've learnt to write about a mother-daughter, a mother-son thing to my children, so that they have that. And I find that it's easier to give them those tools and have to strip back, like you had to, as you grew up, strip those layers back and go back to who you really were.
Yes.
And I find that with the broad spectrum of children that I have, right through from nearly an 18-year-old to a 6-month-old, it's so easy to teach those little kids now than it is to strip black layers off a 16-year-old daughter or son and get them back to where, what the world should be. Love yourself. Love each other. If you don't have something nice to say, just don't say it. Those sort of things. So your letters to Seamus, he will have forever. And I remember when you came into work and you said to me, Pat, what draws you to read my letters? And it was that authentic rawness that you transpire to him to learn. And there's beauty in all of your letters that you write, and it's an experience, and I feel like I've known you forever through them. So we do encourage people to read those. Get on to dearseamus.com, and you can feel some of your own experiences taken into a different light that you've gone through. I know that there's letters that you've written that I've looked at in a completely different way, but it's meant something to me, and I think that you do that to a lot of people. I've encouraged other of my friends to read them and got the feedback from them, and A, they feel like they've known you forever, and B, they've got snippets and improved themselves, gone back to where, the roots of what needs to be who they are, and go from there.
That's really beautiful, and I'm always so grateful to hear from people as to how the letters have touched them, because it's always really different. And it's funny because I'll write a letter expressing or attempting to express in words some kind of message or idea, and everyone will see that letter differently and they'll take something different from it. Or I'll write a letter and think, yeah, it was good, but it doesn't pack a punch for me. And I'll get all this feedback about people saying, oh, I loved that letter, and it really made me, think about this and approach my relationship differently, or whatever the feedback is. It's just really amazing, and that's why it encourages me to keep writing, because you never know how, just by opening yourself, you never know how that's going to touch other people. And we're taught not to do that. We're taught to be separate, close ourselves down. We have certain ways in which we should relate to people depending on how well we know them.
But world's full of stigma too. Yes. I think we're so busy and we get so used to being busy. And it's okay to be busy, but busy doing the right things too is one thing I've learned. There's times when you're busy and you're doing nothing and it's not productive. And there's busy doing stuff you need to get done. And I suppose that's probably me, just busy doing things. But to me, being busy, it's a chance to step back and away from my everyday run around, and in the middle of the night when you can, is sit down and read that letter, and it puts things back into perspective. I can be having the most awfulest day, the hardest day, and I read a Dear Seamus letter and it just puts you so back on the straight and narrow. And I thank you for that. That's what I get out of that. And I'm sure anyone that's listening to this that goes onto dearseamus.com, I hope will feel the same, because it does. We're too big, and I'm afraid in our lives these days we are too busy doing things that when we all stop, there's going to be nothing. We won't have photos, we won't have letters, we won't have audio. It's all going to be gone because we were all just too busy. So getting back to the writing, the journaling, the photo taking, spending time with people, and quality time is what I feel it's all about.
And what you're saying is about connectedness and how important that is to you personally, and how important it is to so many people that we understand not only our connectedness to each other, but our connectedness back to ourselves. That's really important to remember. And it's the difference between being and doing. You know, what you were mentioning before about being busy. And we were talking earlier in the car on the way over here, and talking about being present. So you can choose, and it's just about training your mind, and always knowing that you have a choice. So, you know, there's plenty of times when I catch myself out, when I go, oh, I'm not being present because I'm here right now in the kitchen doing the washing up, but I'm thinking about the thing that someone said to me last week, or I haven't done a letter for 2 weeks, or I've got that doctor's appointment on Monday, or blah, 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 blah.
And it was about being present. What we were talking about in the way over in the car was the work-life balance, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And where it was easy for people to go, you have to separate yourself, and, you know, you live to work and you work to live. But it came down to that not being the case, wasn't it? Where when you're at home and you're thinking about work, that for me it was that TV didn't get delivered, that lounge hasn't come in, I've got to get that Fitbit to that person, or I've got to make sure that they're fridge fitted. And I'm not at home. I'm not on the floor playing trains, painting, baking with the kids, doing that sort of stuff, because your mind is, you know, working at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But when you're at work, you're thinking, is tea on? You know, who's vacuuming the floor? Is the garbage out? I've got to hang that load of washing out. I must do this and I must do that. We need to separate ourselves because we're not present in that one place at the one time.
So it's splitting yourself. Mm. Physically you're in one place and mentally you're somewhere else, and there's a huge gap that gets created, and in that gap, that's what gets filled in with anxiety and depression and worry. And when you bring the two parts of yourself back together and you are being in the moment, that's when you feel really relaxed and happy, and that's the balance that I was getting at, because it's about clarity, being clear about where you are, being present at all times. And it's not always possible, you know, you will drift away, and it's about not bashing yourself up when that happens. It's about just a gentle reminder, oh, I'm not here. I just went somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm back now.
But I'm back now.
And I've got dishwashing hands. But that's all good. That is good.
And there's nothing like children to help you back into the present. When someone's tugging at your pants and demanding chocolate, everything else that was going on in your mind just evaporates, and there you are.
In the midst of it all.
with a toddler wrapped around your leg and opening, opening up the fridge and fishing out
Whatever.
God knows what off toys off shelves and.
But they are the biggest, aren't they? The biggest reminder, and the ones to earth you and ground you.
Yes.
At the end of the day, you get home to that, and it is. There's nothing better, but there is a lot to be present for. So, but we encourage people, don't we, to get on to Dear Seamus, and they can leave their feedback there too, which is great.
And I really love to hear
the
feedback. I really love to, because it's about connectedness. It's like, well, I wrote this letter, I shared myself, and if that touched you or made you question things or whatever it did for you, connect with me and let me know, because I really enjoy that. And after being a frustrated artist for so many years, not knowing how I could express myself in a creative way, and finally finding that outlet, which is the letters, it's my gift. It's how I'm contributing to the world, and I'm doing it through the avenue of my own story that I'm sharing with other people. So it's it gives me so much, and it doesn't really matter if there's 2 people reading the letters or 2 million people reading the letters. The fact is that I've connected with someone else, with another human being, and that's a really beautiful thing, because that can get lost. That can get lost in the way we choose to live our lives.
So what is your main message for Seamus? There's many, I know.
Love, self-love, the freedom of expression, never compromising who you really are, because you will do a great disservice to yourself and to other people by doing that.
On dearseamus.com you have the archive, so you can go back and read all those ones from Mother's Day right through.
Yes, there is a tab on the side that says the letter that started it all, and that was the initial letter, the Mother's Day letter, I think a lot of people are starting to refer to it as.
Be realistic, plan for a miracle.
Exactly.
And that's what it was about.
Yeah.
The letter that started it all.
So that was, it was the stirrings of hope in me, in the way I wanted to express to him. So I felt like when I started, I had a foot in one camp and a foot in the other. So I was saying, I really want to have a miracle of healing and watch my child grow up. But in case I don't, in case I die, I better leave something for him so he knows me. And over the course of the last couple of years, I've fine-tuned it and kind of brought those things into alignment, where, with I'm a little bit loath to kind of talk too much to people about, well, I've read this book and that book, because I don't want people to feel like they need to go and read those books, because the different texts will touch different people, and so I can only speak about my personal experience. The topics that have inspired me the most over the last couple of years have been around how you create your own experience. And so some people might be familiar with terms like manifestation or the law of attraction. So I've been reading a lot of texts by Esther and Jerry Hicks, and they have a whole series of books around the teachings of Abraham. You have Neil Donald Walsh, who has beautiful books called Conversations with God. Then you have Anita Moorjani's book, Dying to Be Me. And that common theme of creating your own experience is also married in with science as well. So I've become very interested in quantum physics. And there are authors out there that are successfully explaining spirituality from a scientific perspective, which to me is really fascinating, because it's very easy to poo-poo all this airy-fairy law of attraction stuff that people, it's just all in their minds. And that is the point. It is all in your mind. That is where the greatest power of creation is. So...
And we talked about it on the way out too, didn't we? The power of the mind and how much of a powerful tool it is.
Yes.
Where we create in our own minds what's going to happen, or we create, things from experiences, and if we choose to believe them, then that's what's going to happen, and we live in that. But with the power of the mind, if we go, right, this is, if you believe that it's going to be better and you believe that this is the road you're going to travel, then that's where you should be. That's, you believe that much, and that mind will tell you, and the mind will lead you down that path subconsciously, I think, more times than anything. And maybe we don't realise we're doing it. But it gets you out of that state when you believe positive and not the negative. For me, you tend to live more positively than get trapped in that negative type of balloon, I suppose it is, really.
Yeah, because it keeps us separate. And it's all about perspective. So, for example, say if you get home one afternoon and you discovered that one of your kids has had a bike stolen. There's different ways in which you can look at that. You can get really angry and you can think, some bugger just stole my kid's bike. Do you know how much that bike was, and why did you leave the bike out on the front lawn anyway? And
for me, that's one less I have to run over.
Oh, well then... See, there you go.
Like, yes.
It's about perspective.
That's
so
right.
You're like, well, I don't have to run over that bike. And,
saved my car.
and maybe, maybe there was a parent going past. They're in a really financially dire situation in their life at the moment. They've got a kid's birthday coming up. Maybe against their better judgment, they thought,
good bike.
Good bike, might take it.
Yeah, awesome.
So, you can it's all about your perspective. So you can choose to be really angry about it and think that someone's taken something from you, or you can go, well, maybe I just inadvertently gave a gift to somebody. And at the end of the day, your biggest measure is how you feel. So if you are thinking these thoughts of anger, then you're going to feel pretty bad, and it's probably going to stay with you. Whereas if you're looking at it from a different perspective and you're feeling really good about it, doesn't it make sense to choose the perspective that makes you feel good?
So someone put that to me, and I can see it like your cancer, where you put it in the bucket, Pat, put it in the bucket, put the lid on it, and put it in the corner. And that's where it stays. Don't open the lid, just put it in the bucket. And as I've grown up, I've put things in the bucket, or I've sent people to an island is the other one. So I've created an island, and those people that annoy you, those people that are not nice, they go on the island and they stay there. And you're the controller of that person, that island, being that person that can allow people to come on often on that island. And there's many people on my island, don't get me wrong.
It's crowded.
But the population can just keep going and going. But that's okay. But I can bring them off if I want to, or I can choose to leave them there. And that's the power of the mind. You just put them on the island and leave them there. And that's where then you can then get back to and focus on what really matters.
Yes.
And to me, that's my kids and my friends, my family, and the world that I'm in.
Yes, it's about having awareness. It's not about, kind of blindly going through and just having these thoughts and living this life and kind of wondering why you're feeling dissatisfied or anxious or depressed. It's about stopping and listening to what's going on in your head or what's going on in your mind. What thoughts are you thinking? What thoughts are you thinking about yourself? What thoughts are you thinking about the world? And are they really your thoughts? Where did they come from? Did they come from your parents? Did they come from a teacher? Did they come from some friends? Did they come from the mass media? It's all coming from somewhere. And at the end of the day, regardless of where it's coming from, you have the choice whether you want to keep thinking it or not. You can just say, I don't want to think that anymore. And there's lots of studies and lots of books available now about neural pathways. And have you heard about neuroplasticity?
No, fill us in.
So they're saying now they've been doing all this research into the brain and neural pathways, so neurons that fire together. So the saying is neurons that fire together wire together. So if you do a certain, physical action or function, then your neural pathways will start to fire together so that they wire together in a line. So, for example, when you start to drive, when you first start to learn to drive, you've got no idea what you're doing and you've, the clutch and the steering wheel and you're stalling it and where's the handbrake and you're thinking about it. But the more that you do it, the more those neurons fire together and then they wire together. And then sooner or later, you're getting in the car and you're not thinking about what you're doing. You just get in and you drive. So they're saying now that you can actually change these neural pathways. So neural pathways are laid down in your mind and they're all firing in a certain way. And by changing the thoughts that you're having, you then start to weaken those connections and the neurons start to fire in different ways in different parts of the brain, in different connections with each other. And that's called neuroplasticity. So you literally change your mind. So you change the way you think, you change the way you experience the world.
See, I never did chemistry or bio, so that's a whole new world to me.
It's fascinating, and I've been, like I said, I've been dipping into quantum physics and, really fascinating, talking about the quantum field, which is the quantum field of possibility. And there's the suggestion that there are endless parallel possibilities that are happening at exactly the same time. So there might be 1,000 different versions of Patricia's life playing out. But you're experiencing this particular one because it's where your focus is. So if you put your focus on something else, then you're going to create a different reality. And that's what really makes me excited. The scientific nerd in me goes, wow. And that's what I'm looking at in terms of wellness. So these people that have these miraculous remissions from cancer, if you're looking at it in the world of quantum physics, it's saying, well, in one reality, this person has a terminal illness, but there's other parallel realities that exist where they don't. So are they somehow tapping into that other reality, which is what's making the cancer go away? You know, like it's fascinating stuff. It's just opening your mind up to possibility. And that's exciting, that's inspiring. So that's what I'm doing. I am living my life with the understanding that nothing is impossible, because there's plenty of examples out there in the world that nothing is impossible. So you need to choose what you focus on. And then what you focus on will assist you in creating your reality.
This has been another LMB studio production.